Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
Hearing. Can you hear me? I hope you can hear me. You know, everybody says you don't talk loudly enough, or you stutter, or you have marbles in your mouth. No. It's you. You don't realize that. It's really you. So, and the person that's going to help you know what you have is, of course, our great audiologist, and that's MICHANNE Davidson, and she is the owner of Active Life Hearing. So she says, don't miss a beat. You got to go and you got to get tested. You see, even though you think we don't talk loudly enough, if you get tested, you'll see who it is. Maybe it is. Maybe we're the ones, and maybe it's not you. But MICHANNE, isn't that what they say?
Everyone says that. In fact, I was mentioning to a patient the other day, it was yesterday, I said, you're telling me that your husband seems to mumble, but I'm sitting across from him, and he is not mumbling. His voice is very, very clear. It's definitely coming from your ears. But commonly, people think it's the other person.
And so they hold their breath when you give them a hearing test, don't they? It makes them nervous. Probably some people can't even hear because they're not listening because they're so nervous.
Very nervous. In fact, they'll say, I'm not sure if I heard it because I heard my heart beating. I said, I guarantee your heartbeat did not interfere with the test. No worries.
But nowadays, years ago, when that happened and somebody was told they had to wear hearing aids, it was fearful because they were huge, they were clunky. That's not like that is anymore.
No, they're actually invisible. Very few people can even see hearing aids on the user anymore.
It's funny. People used to come and they would say, well, if I wear hearing aids, I'm going to look old. And I would think, if you don't hear, you look old.
Exactly. If you can't participate and be part of a group and you fade into the background, that's what makes someone seem older, not someone that's fully engaged all the time.
Well, you have a whole new system about, there are a lot of hearing aid companies, but you have come up with something. I think you should all probably have gone on Shark Tank. You came up with something that is very interesting, the unbundling. Why don't you talk about that?
Oh, I'd love to. Unbundling is a way that we can bring the cost of hearing care into a much more affordable range for the population. And we do that by separating the hearing aids from the service fees. In the past, hearing aids and service fees were bundled together. And so, for instance, you would go to a provider, they'd say the hearing aids cost $4,000 for the pair, and for the next 3 years, you don't have any other monies to pay for any follow-up visits. And although that in the past might have been a good thing when hearing aids required lots of follow-up visits, nowadays they don't require many because they're so sophisticated. The computer software is so well tuned to get a good fit right from the start that once we do the fitting and a few adjustment visits, the patients are good to go for about a year. So we said, why don't we remove some of those prepaid follow-up visits, lower the cost of the hearing aids, and let patients just pay for the appointments they actually need. And with this type of program, patients are often saving about $2,000 per set of hearing aids. So more people have access to care.
My guest is MICHANNE Davidson, and she is an audiologist, and she is owner of Active Life Hearing. I'm going to give you the phone number to call, and you can call. She actually is in lots of places, Carl Springs, Boca Raton, and Boynton Beach. But I'm going to give you the Boca Raton phone number. It's 561-208-3021. Again, that's 561-208-3021. And wherever you're located, she'll find you. You can go see her. I want to go back to this. I was not aware that the hearing aids were priced so high because it took into consideration all those visits. When I first met you, and I'd been involved in the hearing business for a while, I did not know that.
You did not?
No, I did not. They kept that a big secret.
Right. Good to know, because that's our wiggle room. That's what we have to work with to bring the cost down. I can't, I don't have any impact on what the manufacturers charge for the products, but I can, on the back end, work to save patients money by unbundling.
That was a great idea, and I think that you may have started something, of course. You know this when people see this.
I've been hearing.
Yeah,
yes.
Because it's a great idea. It's only fair to those people who need hearing aids. A lot of people go without hearing aids because they can't afford them, or they get the kinds you buy, in the magazine, like $99.
Oh,
which
those aren't even real hearing aids. Those are just general amplifiers, and they're just lousy.
Yeah, I know. And but I know what you're serving people with. I mean, why don't you tell the story of your husband? I love that story. It's so
how
good.
I met him?
Well, how you met him, and now how he loves hearing aids besides you.
Oh, well, he was a patient, and he actually was a patient of a coworker. And she fit in with the hearing aids, and he came in saying, I'm just not hearing that great with them. I think I need an adjustment or something's not right. And apparently I walked by as he was at the counter reporting this to the front staff. And when my receptionist said, well, Dr. Davidson can adjust him, he turned over and looked at me and said, oh, great. I'm going to keep the hearing aids. I'm happy with them. Can I see her now? So little did I know that that's what was going on. That was happening behind the scenes. And sure enough, he was coming in about every month with really dumb questions about his hearing aids, which had nothing to do with what he really needed. And he eventually got the nerve to ask me out on a date, and that was it. So, yeah.
But okay, then let's go with the hearing aids. So how are his hearing aids? And what if he didn't have the hearing aids, how much would he hear?
Nothing of what I say, but who knows? He has about a 40% hearing loss. So he would be missing 40% basically of what's around him. And he's a professional.
He's so smart. That would be a terrible thing for him.
Exactly. And it's very obvious when they're not in because he doesn't participate. And for instance, I could comment on something and I'll say, honey, I can tell you don't have your hearing aids in because you didn't respond to my comment. I know that he would if he had him in. So he's like, yeah, I took him out to take a break or something like that. So it's really obvious when someone isn't wearing hearing aids when they need them because you get a lot of silence. You're expecting responses back and you don't get them. And
well, one thing, MICHANNE, that you did say is they're so easy and they're not shown. But there are some people who don't have the dexterity in their fingers to be able to put them in. So I'm sure you take that all into account, don't you?
Yes, I do. There are many different types of hearing aids, different shapes, different sizes, some that you can put on a charger so you never have to change a battery. So we look at each patient individually and assess what their needs are. What are their communication needs? What are their dexterity skills? What are their cognitive skills? How much can they learn about the hearing aids? Also, are they someone that is very active with computers or cell phones? Maybe they want connectivity with Bluetooth devices. So really, it's a big spectrum. So from very simple products that are easy to handle to very sophisticated ones that connect with the cloud.
Yeah,
range.
And so we have also, as there are a multitude of computers, there are a multitude of the public. And we have maybe an elder person who really just sits at home, wants to watch TV, doesn't have a lot of communication skills anyway. Then you have the people who are still working, and everyone thinks they're old anyway, and if they can't hear, that's it. They're going to lose their job.
Absolutely. In fact, my husband, being in his 50s, he is a professional. He's in the computer industry, and the computer industry is filled with 20-year-olds, everywhere 20-something-year-olds, and for him to compete in that market, he has to be sharper, really, than someone that's in their 20s. So without hearing aids, he'd be dead in the water. This is what keeps him current.
And one thing you told me when I first met you is there are hearing centers that have to sell certain computers. I mean, certain...
franchises, things
that's
like that
right.
that are
certain
required
kinds
to send
of hearing
only
aids.
one brand
exactly.
of hearing aids.
But
right.
you know that there are different, I'd say, attributes to different hearing aids.
Absolutely. And so we have to assess, again, each person individually and say, what is the best product for them? And I carry every single manufacturer there is for major manufacturers on hearing aids. So we really try to pinpoint, what's best for each person individually.
And the other thing that I read in your upcoming article, and it's so important, is that you actually give people a trial without charging them anything. How can you do that? I mean, how are you able to make that hearing aid work for them and they haven't even bought it?
I'll tell you. I test their hearing. I then help them choose a product that would be appropriate for them. And then we have a huge array of demonstration units that I've purchased from the manufacturers. They say demonstration unit on it. They're not for sale. But then we actually hook that up to the computer. We put their hearing test into it. and produce a setting in there that's exactly prescribed for them. Teach them some simple things they can do for that demonstration week and send them home and let them experience what good hearing is all about.
It must be, and they can probably hear birds and things they haven't heard, right? And it's, it's safe because imagine they can't hear that car starting. It's very dangerous.
Or the car coming down the road, or they think the car's from the right and it's coming from the left. I mean, all types of things like that. And the bird thing I hear all the time. I heard birds for the first time in 20 years. They were awesome. So, yeah, that's neat.
Yeah, there's so many things to not hearing well, and it's really not talked about much because people are embarrassed.
Exactly, and I feel so bad about it, and it's time we bring that out to the front and say it's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's part of the aging process. You can't avoid it, and it's something that's so easily correctable nowadays, and so simply correctable with just very natural sounding products that just become part of you. You put them on in the morning, you wear them all day. It's just like bringing your hearing back suddenly. It's amazing.
What does a hearing test actually consist of? So if someone's listening now, let me give them your phone number again to make an appointment. You do have to make an appointment. You can't do this over the phone. The phone number in Boca Raton is 561-208-3021. ActiveLifeHearing.us. That's their website. ActiveLife. That says a lot. ActiveLifeHearing.us. So if they make the appointment, what's going to happen?
Well, they're going to come in. I will take a very thorough history and a communication needs assessment to see what's happening in their lives communication-wise, what kind of assistance they're looking for. Make certain there's no wax in their ears or any type of ear infection, something that would require medical intervention. If everything's good to go, we do a basic hearing test, which is checking for the level, it's called threshold, the level they can hear the beeps, that's a beep test, and follow that up with a speech test they're not speaking, but I'm speaking and asking them to repeat back words to see how clear speech is to them, because hearing is really a two-step process. There is the hearing mechanism in the ear itself, and then how does the brain perform when the sound reaches it? So we're looking at neurological assessment with reference to how the brain processes speech, as well as what the actual hearing levels are. So we have to check all of that. And so we're doing beeping testing, where they press a button to the beep and repeat the word test. So it's considered a complete exam. And we do that first exam at no charge at all. So we really want to encourage people to take that step and come on in.
Okay, so then they do take that step and they come in, and then you, of course, the prognosis depending, and they can see it. They can see the level, right?
Absolutely. I get my magic marker out, and we mark up their test so they can explain it and understand it. I make certain they have a copy for their own records, see if they would like a report sent to their physician. We do all of that at that visit. And if we find that they need hearing aids and they would like a demonstration set to take home, we do it right then on the spot and send it home with them.
See, I think that's the miracle of it, because they still may not believe you. You know that after the test. And now they take these home, and all of a sudden the world opens up to them.
Right.
And you'd have to rip those hearing aids out of their ears because they're not giving them up anymore.
You got it. And I've seen that in the past. We used to do where we would demonstrate the products in the office and then take them out and watch them very sadly leave the office with no hearing. And I said, no, we're going to stop that. We're going to give them a whole week to wear it and really experience it in its full extent.
So now let's just go through your credentials. As an audiologist, people don't really understand what that is. Why don't you share with them the difference in a hearing, someone who goes to a hearing center and they meet a very nice person who could have been a vacuum cleaner salesman before or something else.
Many
and they've
were
been trained.
Something before, right?
I know, and they were trained in this, and they try their hardest. But tell us what the difference is in your training as an audiologist.
Well, I have a doctorate of audiology, so it's about 8 years of college. I had a year of internship, and this is many years ago. So it is a long educational process, and also I have an additional 30 years experience on top of that. I was also an adjunct professor at Nova University and have trained many doctoral students as well, where a licensed hearing aid dispenser has to have a high school diploma or equivalent, like a GED. They have to find a sponsor and train for 6 months, and if they pass a written exam, they can do basic hearing testing and fit hearing aids. So there's a little bit of a difference between someone spending 8 years to learn the field and someone spending 6 months, and I think that speaks for itself.
So as an audiologist, you really learn all about the workings of the ear, and there are so many new scientists, new things coming up. I think I sent you something about, every time I find anything new about hearing, I always shoot it over to you, because they're really working on that. They'd like to put a computer in a person's head and never have to have a hearing aid anymore, right?
Right. There's even they have even a device for single-sided deafness where you can implant something in the mouth, and it sends the signal vibrating through the jaw to the ear. Yeah, and so, I mean, who knows where they're going? I mean, there's all kinds of new things coming out.
There will be. But the other thing that I'd like to cover is, let's talk about the prices of hearing aids. You can get the Rolls Royce, and then you can get others that are really good Chevys.
Absolutely.
So a budget, you shouldn't worry that the cost is so expensive, that there'll be something for you in your price range, won't there?
Absolutely. I mean, hearing aids in our practice start around the $600 range for each hearing aid. And for a good digital hearing aid, it's just a basic model. But for people with very quiet lifestyles and tight budgets, it's a good product. And it comes in all different sizes. They're still very, very small. And then we, of course, have, like you said, the Cadillac, ones that connects with your iPhone or your computer or your iPad. And so there's many, many in between models. So we really, like I said, that's that assessment we do with the patient. We try to find the best product for them in the price range that they can afford. And we even offer financing. So we have no interest payments for a year. So that helps a lot of patients as well.
I want to go back to something I said before about people who don't wear hearing aids don't hear well, and people know that they're just old, right? But there are now younger people who need hearing aids, and they're not old. So you have to move that equation of, okay, they have a hearing aid, so they don't know what they're doing, they're old, as compared to we know that's not true anymore.
Not anymore. In fact, a large number of my patients, I would say, are in their 40s and 50s. Yeah. And we're going to be seeing more and more of that with all the noise exposure. This is a very noisy world nowadays. People are using headphones and listening to music very, very loudly, and eventually catches up with you, and it catches up with you sooner than you think. And it's also with the rise of diabetes. There is an association of diabetes and hearing loss.
I don't know that. Tell us about that.
Well, with diabetes, the blood flow is restricted, which is why you see patients as they have progress. They might have problems with might have to have an amputated limb or something like that. This is related to the blood flow to different parts of the body. Well, the blood supply to the ear is very, very small. So in cases where patients have had diabetes for a while or poorly managed diabetes, there's accelerated hearing loss.
I'll have to talk to Dr. Mencia about that, because I'm wondering if, it's funny, he knows a lot, but that's something I hadn't heard. So sure, that makes sense. It affects the eyes. I know that. The little capillaries, that's how a lot of ophthalmologists can tell that they have diabetes or a problem, because they're losing the sight that way.
Exactly.
But I didn't know you could do that through the ears.
Same process, right. So that's when we take a health history. If we see those types of things in someone's health history, it puts us on the alert. Okay, let's see what we're going to find. And often we do find hearing loss.
You also said something about if people come in there, maybe they don't have a hearing loss, but they have too much wax. Do you remove the wax for them?
We can, if it's not a complete obstruction. So I'm licensed to remove earwax, and if it's a case where it's not completely obstructed and it's soft enough to be removed on the spot, I will do it. Otherwise, we recommend using softening drops first and sending them to either their physician for it or coming back once it's softer. Yeah.
Yeah, that's, people, let's say that right now, do not use Qtips.
Please don't. It's like packing gunpowder in an old musket. Please don't do it.
No, I know, and people do tend to do that. I'm really very careful about it. I usually go to an otolaryngologist to get which is a big name for ear, nose, throat specialist, to get it removed. Exactly. And I do every 6 months, because I don't want to play around with that. Because there have been doctors who do it, but they don't do it all the time. And so I would rather go to someone who that's their business. They have the right
Yes, and for those severe cases, I have a list of really good ear, nose, and throat physicians, and we try to find someone that's close to them, that's on their insurance plan, and we call right away for them and try to get them right in. So
Right, because I know that MICHANNE will not give you a hearing test if you have wax, because it will not be valid.
No, it's a waste of my time and theirs, and I really want to see how their hearing is under the best conditions, so their ears have to be clear.
Right. And, when you think about the older adults who it's a big deal for them to get up and they have to get dressed and they have to find someone to drive them to you. So it has to be a real event. It has to be worth their doing that.
Right.
So we want to make sure that they leave enough time and they're
I schedule
ready.
every patient an hour and a half of my time. I
Wow.
don't want to rush them. I want them to get to know me and my, it's a family-owned business, so my daughter and my niece and my nephew, we all work together. I'd like them to get to know us as providers, but as a family, and just give them all the time they need to feel comfortable and ready to get corrected.
I think that's why you have so many referrals.
I
think
so
once
too,
once someone comes to you, I don't think you're ever going to get them to leave.
Yeah.
And actually, you have these 3 offices, which is interesting. You started in Coral Springs, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
That's where
I
you
live
live.
in Coral Springs.
Right.
Mhm.
And then you went to Boca. And just recently, you went to Boynton Beach, and you're in the offices of the AGI, which is where Dr. Mencia and his wife, Dr. Rosemary, are. And it's a beautiful office there. So you're really expanding.
Yes, and because there's a big need for our services, especially in the unbundled format. We really are trying to make those services available to people and more affordable to people. So we're expanding, getting out there.
How often should someone come to you once they have hearing aids? Do they have to keep coming, or what?
Well,
if everything seems to be fine?
My patients, once I teach them how to maintain their hearing aids and we have everything set correctly, once a year is typical.
I have found that cleaning out hearing aids are very important, that unless you teach them how to, take the tube and put their little brush in there, that's really critical,
Yeah,
isn't
and now
it?
there's little wax filters that protect the hearing aids, and they come with the hearing aids, and we can teach them how to change them, and we can do them for them if they have a dexterity issue, but most of my patients can do it, and they just need to be taught how to do it. They don't need to pay someone an extra $2,000 to change a wax filter. It takes 30 seconds, and it's very simple. But
it does make a difference. See,
makes a huge
sometimes
difference.
they think something's wrong with their hearing aid.
Probably more than half the time, it's just wax. And really, if they know how to change that filter, which takes, like I said, a few seconds of their time, they can fix the problem on their own. They just need the training, and that's what we like to spend the time to do.
Right. And the other thing is, you will start to see, and I'm sure you do now, people with memory loss. And that's
Yes.
that's something else I think you have to fight, in a sense. You have to be aware of that, because you could tell them how to how to work their hearing aids, and they won't be able to remember. So hopefully when they come, they bring a caregiver, or they bring someone who lives with them or understands. People need that.
Right. And in fact, that's part of that first visit. We need to get to know everything about the patient. Do they have a caregiver? Please bring the caregiver. Maybe they don't know that they need a caregiver, but I might be one of the first ones to figure it out, because I spend so much time with them and I realize they're not retaining the information. And I'm like, do you have anyone to help you? No. And I said, well, do you have a child, someone's phone number that I can call and just talk to them about that I'm treating you today and what's happening? And so I've had to have conversations with the children of patients and say, did you know mom is not remembering some things, or so you'd be surprised. We get involved in many ways.
Yeah,
we really want to be part of their.
Well, I think that's
life.
really why you've had the training you're really a doctor of audiology, and so it isn't just going and fitting a hearing aid. You have to understand
so much more.
The whole part. Right. For a long time as a gerontologist, I would do training for a lot of companies, and it was I call it the unfair hearing test. And
Tell me.
Well, it's interesting, because I would make it very difficult. I had to do a muffled hearing, and I do this for people. I do it for doctors. I do it for stockbrokers. I did it for a lot of companies, because they never could understand why they need to talk to their clients, people differently. And
That is awesome.
I did this for
Yeah.
I did it for 2 hours. I did it for all the major HMOs and all I did this. That's why I do understand this so much. And they would not believe. And then I taught them how to deal with people, how you look at them, you talk to them. It's made me a better interviewer.
I love
because
it.
you know, there are a lot of people who can't, if they can read your lips, they can, even if they don't have hearing aids, or if they have hearing aids, they have to look at you directly. Otherwise, they don't know what's going on. And so many times you talk to a person who's looking at a computer. They're not looking at you. Doctors, many times, don't go up close enough for the person to understand what they're saying.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a big
sometimes
field.
the patients are too intimidated to admit that they don't hear. So it's always good to ask for repetition. So have them repeat what you just told them,
Yes.
or have them summarize what you told them, so
Exactly.
you know it actually got through.
You're so
Important.
right. You're so right. Well, MICHANNE, it's always wonderful talking to you. Let me give your phone number out again. It's in Boca Raton. We'll just give that number. It's 561-208-3021. But if you call that number, and you live either in Coral Springs or in Boynton Beach or any of those other areas, they'll tell you where you can go. So don't miss a beat. Go to Active Life Hearing and talk to MICHANNE Davidson. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been fun.
It always is with you.